Alright, welcome back to Everlasting Summer Part 10, I think? Yeah. We're just having lunch with these lovely ladies, and I had to leave, so let's continue. The remaining time was spent listening to Miku talking about some nonsense. I was just slowly going mad in silence. Oh, I sound sick. Ugh. Obviously, the first thing I did after going out was inhaling a great amount of fresh air. The sun was setting. I decided to take a walk. Highly unlikely that I will find anything more exciting to do for the rest of the evening. That way, something interesting could arise quite unexpectedly. What? Whoa. That was weird. I was approaching the square when I heard a loud clap. It seemed like something exploded. I felt paralyzed. I am in a hostile environment, not knowing rules and laws of this place. It would be better for me to run, but at the same time I was curious. Probably I would just keep standing here, but somebody grabbed my hand. It was Olga. Why are you standing here? Let's go and see what happened. Can you ever manage without me? I begged her piteously. It shouldn't be anything serious. I hope. Spirit, stop that. When we came to the square, there was already a crowd of pioneers. Olga vigorously pushed through the crowd and approached towards the crime scene. Obviously, someone tried to blow up Genda. But the attackers failed. The monument was still standing upright. There were only dim ash traces on the pedestal. Well, who did this? She looked over the crowd of pioneers. Sure thing it was done by an organized terrorist bunch. They all came here just to look what happened. I noticed Ilyana and Elisa in the crowd. And it looks like our camp leader noticed them too. You two, here. They approached reluctantly. Why always me? If you think so. Show me your hands, Elisa. What's wrong with them? I looked closer and saw they were smeared with black. Now it's clear. What did you make the bomb with? Oh no. Junior terrorists seemed to be hesitating whether to confess or not, but then blurted out proudly. Activated carbon, saltpeter, and sulfur. Wait a minute. Carbon. Carbon that she stole from the first aid post. Why exactly the monument? What did this honored man ever do to you, the fighter of the rights of... I could hardly imagine how long she would keep on scolding Elisa if the electronic wouldn't pop out at that very moment, shouting, would you like something, kitty? I found it! I found it! Everyone turned towards him. He held a boot in his hand. Here! Electronic boastfully shook it over his head. It's Shurek's boot. Okay, calm down. Tell us in detail, where did you find it? In the forest. On the way to the old camp. Whispers ran among the pioneers. Old camp, old camp. Are you sure? Absolutely. What's wrong with this old camp? I joined in the conversation. Nothing special, really. She stammered. One of the Semyon legends tells the story of a young camp leader's ghost living there. She fell in love with the pioneer, but he rejected her, and so she killed herself. Did harakiri with a kitchen knife. Next day that boy was hit by a bus. Ilyana ran out of the crowd. Bus? I held myself from asking about the route's number. But science doesn't approve of ghost existence, so we have nothing to be afraid of. Anyway, somebody should go there. I feel like I'm just replacing the word somebody with Semyon, really. Suddenly the crowd started to thin. Olga, it's almost night. Maybe tomorrow? I turned around and saw Slavia and Lena. What if at night something happens to him? No, today, right now. By the way, where is this place? Electronic roughly described me the directions and told me the story of the old camp. The camp leader looked at me attentively. If you think that You're the only man here. Electronic. I looked around the area. That's right. Electronic was quick to flee. Oh. I still didn't want to walk in the woods alone. If you ask me, I would. Oh god. I don't think Elisa's gonna... I want to go with Elisa, but I don't think she'll be much help. Let's go with Slavia. Will she agree? I looked at Slavia. She did not pay attention to me. Looks like it's not my day. Am I going there alone? Olga looked thoughtfully. Perhaps you're right. We'll go together tomorrow morning. Oh, come on. We stood in silence for some time and then dispersed over the camp. Everybody seemingly forgot about Elisa and her terrorist attack. A terrorist act. Maybe due to the minor damage it caused. Together with the camp leader, we moved towards her cabin. I tried to think why Shirk would go to the old camp. He is interested in robots and cybernetics, not scary stories and ghosts. What does it have to do with the boot? Remember how I decided to wait until something extraordinary would happen? And then I realized, this is it. Olga, I think I'll take a walk before sleep. Just not a long one. Okay. When I reached the square, I understood that hanging around in the forest or at some other hell place may not be that scary. But doing this in the dark, I didn't want to return to Olga's cabin, but I had to find a flashlight. For instance, in the infirmary. I was glad I didn't spend the whole time there reading that fashion magazine. The flashlight was found quickly, and in a few minutes I was again standing at the square putting myself together. I just had to make the final decision before I entered the forest. Moving along the pioneers' cabins, by the forest path into the abandoned camp. I set forth. Electronic told me that the old building was built immediately after the war. It looked like a kindergarten or a barrack, as I expected, and definitely couldn't fit less pioneers than today's camp. Definitely could fit less pioneers, yeah. It was abandoned for about 20 years. It was now totally dark. The forest looked totally different at night. Mysterious shadows were hiding behind the trees, strange rustling and cries of night birds coming from everywhere, branches treacherously crunching under my feet. The full moon was shining, so I decided to save the battery in the flashlight. Sure, I will need it sometime soon. The further I moved, the less pleasant thoughts were coming into my head. I wasn't afraid of the dark at all. I didn't believe in ghosts and other mystical crap. But at the same time, during the last few days, I encountered so many incomprehensible phenomena that against my own will I started to look between the lines in the simplest things. Obviously, I felt exceptionally uneasy in the forest at night. Everywhere I looked, every shadow, every tree or bush looked like weird creatures, escaping straight from horror movies or from Stephen King's novels. A branch seemed to be someone's hand, so eager to grab your shoulder. A lying log, someone's dead body, someone who failed to get out of the forest. In every ravine I saw a bottomless abyss. If I would find myself in this forest under any other circumstances, without all these buses and pioneer camps, of course I would still feel myself uncomfortable. But then I would be able to explain everything with logic and be afraid of nothing. Of course, except for owls and mice. But at the moment where there were more than enough reasons to fear. Despite all this, I reached the old camp without any adventures. Wow. In a little glade surrounded by trees stood a house resembling a kindergarten. Paint peeled off the walls, almost all windows were broken. Broken masonry here and there, holes on the roof looked like those produced by bombing. In front of the building was a little garden, surrounded by a rusty fence. Apparently once it was a playground, with a merry-go-round, swing, chutes, and other Soviet attractions. But time is cruel. All of them were mutilated by corrosion and broken. The grass was so tall that it almost came up to my waist. The moon looked out from behind the clouds and illuminated the old camp. It seemed like everything came back to life, windows with new glass and walls painted with fresh paint. I heard a playful laughter, saw translucent children joyfully running and frolicking in the yard. Harsh camp leader on the threshold, holding a basket with ripe apples in her hands. An old cleaning lady, Manya, taking a nap in shade. I got such chills. Of course, my imagination was playing tricks, but the old camp itself was so similar to all post-apocalyptic pictures I have seen that these visions were of no surprise. I stood undecided for a long time before I dared to go further. After all, I'm here to find Shurik, though I still don't get what he might be doing here, if he's even here. A boot somewhere nearby doesn't mean anything. However, if he was not eaten by wolves, for some reason it seemed like there were no wolves in this forest, this might be the only place where he might be hiding. I accurately crossed the yard, pushing the tall grass apart, trying not to run into some piece of metal. But I stopped in a doorway, hesitating. Impenetrable, heavy darkness looked at me from inside. Even the bright moonlight could not reach any object or silhouette. My head was filled up with different thoughts that it's better for me not to go any further and run away quickly. But I pulled myself together, turned on the flashlight, and stepped over the threshold. Inside, the building looked like a typical kindergarten. I still remembered my childhood days, and so everything here looked very familiar. Sleeping room with lines of beds standing close to each other, a large playing room, toilets, dining room, and utility rooms. Signs of the past children's joy was seen everywhere. From time to time, the flashlight helped me to draw my attention to a decaying doll or a plastic toy car, or punctured rubber ball, or broken rank of tin soldiers. There was a faded with age book on a table. I flipped through a few pages. It was a story I read a long time ago, back in my childhood. Something about the war. Enemies destroyed the kindergarten, and all of its kids hid in the little basement together with a bunch of adults, while bombs were exploded up on the surface. I don't remember the end of the story, but as far as I remember, nobody died. Looking at the illustrations, all emotions, fear, sadness, sympathy to the poor children, and sense of hopelessness, which I had experienced while reading this book, came over me. It's strange that under exactly these conditions, right here and now, that I found this book. Probably there is somebody who manages the ongoing, who writes scenarios for this absurd play, who sews costumes for local pioneers and draws sceneries like this abandoned camp. To tell the truth, he is very talented. Attention paid to even the most minor of details. Although this place was abandoned a long time ago, everything here seemed to be untouched. Of course, time didn't spare this camp. In so many years, it was oftenly visited by the locals. Just a perfect place for young people, hitting their puberty. They could drink alcohol, indulge in amorous pleasures, or simply burn everything down just for fun. Electronic mentioned this place is full of its legends. Legends of ghosts and devils living here. Take at least the story about the camp leader who committed suicide. In my world, nobody would believe that this could stop anybody, but in this reality, everything is possible. Certainly the fear didn't disappear, but I decided that since I came here, let's take it to the end. The building was small, so it wasn't difficult to inspect it fully. But I didn't find any signs of Shurik. Maybe I should just call him out. But on the other hand, it's not a good idea. Frustrated, I sat on a bench in the lobby inside. "Ghosts, where are you?" I asked the camp. And all of a sudden I noticed a strange deepening in the corner. A small hatch ajar, an adult would hardly squeeze in it. And it seemed to me that it had been recently opened as the dust was cleared around it. And so it's here where I need to get scared. So, Shurik reached somewhere. What might be lurking beneath? A basement? What was he doing there? I fully opened the hatch and pointed the flashlight into the darkness. There was a ladder going down for a couple of meters, jibbing into a concrete floor. There was a low, narrow corridor disappearing into the darkness. I hesitated for a long time. On the one hand, I had absolutely no desire to go down. But on the other hand, if Shirk was really there... I swore loudly and began to descend. Downstairs was so dark that even the flashlight didn't help much. Low ceiling, wires extending along the walls, broken lamps clad in iron bars. We've seen it all somewhere. I slowly started to move deeper into the dungeon. The road went down after a dozen of meters and ended up with stairways with high steps. Ugh. Soon I found myself in front of a massive metal door. There was a sign painted on it. I looked closely and realized that it was a biohazard sign. No wonder, if the old camp was built after the war and it lasted until the 70s. So it's an ordinary bomb shelter and there's nothing to be afraid of. However, these thoughts made me even more scared. I made a decision and opened the door, which immediately shut with a sharp sound as soon as I stepped through the doorway. I shuddered strongly so that my hands began to tremble and eyes darkened. I regained consciousness after a few seconds, and only then I realized that apparently a strong spring was attached to the door. I found myself in quite a spacious room. In the beam of the flashlight I could see a double bed, some cabinets along the walls, and several devices of unknown purpose located in the far corner. Seems that this bomb shelter was never used. Nobody ever came here. The beds were made, which is strange by itself. I looked carefully around the room several times. The cabinets were filled with gas masks, chemical protective suits, dry rations, various domestic dribs and drabs. Devices which purpose I could not at first determine were gauges of radiation, air pressure, and temperature. It was a typical bomb shelter, in short. I've never been in such places, but that's how I imagined it. The only thing remained unexplored was the door at the far end of the room. I pulled the handle, but the door remained closed. If someone recently came down here, and he wasn't found in a room, then it would be logical to assume that he is behind this door. I called out in whisper. Shirk? No reply. Maybe he locked himself. But why? It was unclear what to do next. On the one hand, I could come back tomorrow with help, but for some reason I thought that behind this door I could find answers that can't wait to be found. Once again, I walked across the room and took a crowbar from the corner. I picked the door bottom with it and tried to rip it from its hinges. Oddly enough, after a while, it did. And good, it was not as massive as the previous door. The door gave up and slammed on the ground. That's a big door. I took a breath and pointed a flashlight into the passage. There was a corridor vanishing in the darkness, the same as the one which got me here. The walls were closing together. My head almost touched the ceiling, but I could not make out the end of the corridor. I walked carefully, looking at the ground. This was the reason I did not fall into the pit. Oh. The hole was 1.5 meters in diameter, and there was an earth at the bottom of it instead of concrete. Looks like a rail track. Seems that the hole was caused by an explosion. It wasn't too big. I could easily get out later. Ah. After I jumped into the hole, I found myself in a semblance of a miner's drift. The walls and the ceiling were reinforced with wooden beams. The tunnel was so long that my flashlight was insufficient. A few minutes later, I found myself at the crossroads. It's too dangerous to go further. I can get lost. I decided that it would be a good idea to somehow indicate the place from which I began the journey into the labyrinth. So I picked up a stone and made quite a big notch on the wall. So, let's go left. It seemed that there was another fork in the road. Let's go left again. I came to some kind of miner's camp. Picks and helmets everywhere. A rusty wagon stood in the corner. All items were so old, they dated rather from the beginning of the 20th century than from the middle. So this really is a mine, which means I can be walking here on and on without finding a way out. But I sensed that an exit was somewhere nearby and went further. Seems that there's another fork in the road. Let's go left. Oh my god. Let's go right. Seems there's another fork in the road. Let's go right. I hope I don't have to remember all of these. Another fork in the road. Let's go right. Another fork in the road. Let's go right. We've now gone in a circle. We have to go left. Another fork in the road. Oh my god. Left. Left. Right. I'm stuck. Left. Right. Finally! A door appeared from the darkness around the last turn. I thought I was going to be lost forever. I opened it and went inside the small room. Nobody was here except Shurik, who sat in the corner. Shurik! He stared at me with eyes full of terror. Ah, don't come. Shurik, it's me, Semyon. I won't give up just like that. He got a piece of a reinforcement bar from behind his back and started waving it around. Shurik, what's wrong with you? Calm down. First you bring me here, then take me through this mine, and now you're pretending to be Semyon. He must have gone nuts completely. Shurik, calm down. Nobody pretends to be me. I am actually me. I tried to talk as... Oh, that wasn't calm. I tried to talk as calm as I could, but was feeling nervous almost more than him. Semyon? He squinted. Is that really you? Yes. Now tell me what happened. How did you get here? Shurik recovered his breath and started to talk. I needed some parts for the robot, and I heard that there's a bomb shelter in the old camp, and there could be some instruments there. So I got up in the morning and went... He stopped for a minute, trying to deal with the tremor in his hands. I found suitable parts, but then... I read a primal fear in his eyes. The voices, they told me to go here. I went down the mine, and they were telling me to go to the right, then left, then right, then left, then right, then left. He started to laugh hysterically. But now they won't get me. I'll be sitting here. They won't find me here. He once again started to wave his pipe in the air. Shurik, there's no one here. I wasted quite a lot of time walking in the mine like you, but haven't heard any voices. He fixed his eyes on me. Then you are with them! Oh shit. Oh wow. This music. Shurik rushed towards me. I was just barely able to dodge him. But the flashlight wasn't as lucky, and took a full force of Shurik's strike. Oh no. We found ourselves in complete darkness. Now it was my time to lose my mind. What have you done, idiot? I swayed a hand in the way where I expected Shurik to be, but with no avail. Now we both will die here. I got nothing but silence in return, and then quite hysterical laughter. It's alright. That's fine. I know where the exit is. Follow me. Oh no. Follow you where? I can't see a damn thing. Follow my voice. Oh shit. I had no other choice. Here. Shurik's voice was heard somewhere further. How do you know where to go? I walked here all over. Then why didn't you leave? The voices. What? They can hear us. In theory, I could believe that there are some supernatural forces here. In Semyon camp, it's just a daily thing to happen. But there were no reasons to panic yet, though my hands were shaking without a stop. Here. I was following his voice slowly and eventually lost track of time. It could be we were roaming a few minutes or a few hours. Finally, a dim light appeared in the distance. We're here. He really actually did take us to an exit. Wow. We reached the wall. The way towards freedom was blocked but with the lattice on the ceiling. I pulled myself up and recognized the square from the bits of landscape I could see. Wow, that goes far. Pick me up. Shurik obediently followed my request. Wait, did I say that? I didn't pay attention. Oh no, it's just pick me up, okay. Shirk immediately followed my request. I started to hit the grating with my fist so hard that just a few strikes later, all my arms were covered in blood. But the grating in return gave in and folded aside. A minute later, we were out on the surface behind the monument of Genda. When I saw this grating before, I had no idea that there could be catacombs below it. They will come for you. I fell to the ground tiredly. Who? They will come, said Shirk again and ran away. It's fucking bonkers. I was so exhausted that I could not even think about some voices, recalling some forsaken camp, bomb shelter, or the mine. Almost unconscious, I reached the camp leader's cabin. I couldn't go to bed right away. Look who's here. Olga. I started tiredly, attempting to cut the explanation to its minimum. You said you were going for a walk, but instead... And I was going to go and call the police. And... Olga, can it wait until tomorrow? I'm really tired. The camp leader eyed all over me. Okay, fine. I was a bit surprised that she agreed so fast, but decided not to waste this opportunity and quickly turned the light off and darted under the covers. Day 5. I'm getting along pretty quick. We ran with our last bits of strength, like those who run for their precious lives. Like a doomed person knowing that there is no hope to save his life, still fights the inevitable in his own fate. I hardly managed to close the heavy door behind me. I had no idea how deep this bomb shelter is and if it's able to sustain a nuclear blast, but we have no other place to hide. She gripped my hand tight. Don't be afraid. Bits of the ceiling were falling off and the walls were shaking. I was prepared for the worst. But death is such a thing that you can't ever be prepared for. But suddenly, complete silence fell. It was ringing even louder than the explosions. Maybe it's time to say goodbye, she said. She was whimpering. I wanted to ease her somehow, but realized there was nothing I could do. Yes. You know, Horrible bang almost broke my eardrums apart. It seems that I'm under a piece of collapsed ceiling, but I haven't felt any pain. All I wanted was to not let her go. Some weird dreams. I woke up in a cold sweat, losing my breath and gulping for air. It took some time to come to my senses. It was a dream. It was just a dream. My inquired mind, however, refused to believe it. But who was that girl with me there? I didn't want to let go of her hand so hard. Sadly, I couldn't recall her at all. The clocks were showing a few minutes past 10. Wow, I slept in late. I was slowly coming to my senses as reality started to stake out its claim for my mind. My stomach foully growled. Alright, war is war, but lunch to be served in due time. Turned out that Olga wasn't here. She must have decided not to wake me up. Well, thanks goes to our camp leader for this. After yesterday's adventure, I had to have a rest. Last night left as a blurry reminiscence, which I really didn't want to think about. It's now more important to find something to eat and to wash myself. Exactly, because a pioneer must always be clean and tidy. Though I would agree with this thesis even without being a pioneer, and I wasn't one as a matter of fact. On my way to the washstands, I met Electronic. He started to wave his hands and ran to me. Good morning. Thank you for finding Shirk. Without him, I don't even... It's nothing. I was a bit embarrassed. No, really, don't be shy much. The country must be proud of its heroes. And what about Shirk? How did he look in the morning? Is he alright? After yesterday's craziness, I thought such a question would be completely valid. Yes, absolutely. The only thing is he can't remember anything. Can't he? I wasn't surprised at all. You shouldn't be surprised. This is the end of the episode. That was horrible. I'm sorry. See you next time. Bye-bye.